Hey guys, wanted to talk about shield enchants as a Fury Prot tank. This doesn't really pertain to Prot. I probably would have the same opinions if I was Prot for different reasons. But there's been a few videos where I've talked about what gear to wear, what gear that I use rather, as a Fury Prot tank. I have a threat set of gear. I have a 4-piece tier 3 set of gear. I've got a mitigation set. And I've got a couple boss specific sets. And in AQ40, except for fighting twins, I'm basically running my threat set the entire time. In BWL and MC, I'm running my threat set the entire time. In Nax, I'm running my threat set and my 4-piece. I'm bouncing between those throughout the raid. And then depending on if I'm... And I have one for Mograine, so if I'm tanking Mograine on the 4 Horsemen, I put that set on. If I'm tanking Patchwork as a main tank, I have a set, and I have a set for Patchwork Soaking. And then I have Fire Resist set, which is just for Fire Maw, and Ragnaros, which on Ragnaros, it just depends on if you have Paladins with you or not. Obviously, this is for Alliance, since that's what I play. And then my mitigation set. And my mitigation set does differ a little bit from my Patchwork Soaker set. There's not a ton of differences, but there is a little bit. But I've talked in the past about block rating and block value, block chance, and I've made the comment a few different times in a few different videos that as a Fury Prot tank, you don't care about block. And that is true. So what I mean by that is that, like, in my threat set of gear, I don't have any tier 3. I'm using basically 2 pieces of 2.5, which doesn't have any block rating or block value on it. I'm using a lot of DPS plate, so plated A-bomb, Helm of Endless Rage. I'm using Steadfast Determination because I don't have Goas yet from Cthulhu. Mentors, Fallen Hero, DPS rings. Still have Black Hand's Breath because I'm having bad luck with trinket drops. But I'm not wearing anything that gives... I have no block... I have block chance, but the reason that I have some block chance and the block value comes from strength. So I don't have any pieces of gear that are directly adding block value. My block chance comes from my talents, which I have 5 out of 5 in shield spec, and I have that so that I can get improved shield block. And the rest of it is coming from my defense rating. So your defense rating does increase your chance to dodge, block, and parry, and then decreases your chance to be hit and critically hit. Now, the shield that I have, so I have the Face of Death, and I have 2% block on it. And I've been using 2% block on my shields. I used to use Thorium Spike, and I changed to 2% block probably not quite a year ago, maybe like 8 or 10 months ago. And the reason I changed was because the threat output from the Thorium Spike, if you're going to use a shield the entire fight, which, you know, depends on how your guild plays, but Lotheb and Saffron are pretty much the only fights, and then Twins in AQ40, that I wear a shield almost the entire fight. I don't wear it the entire fight, but almost. I'd say 80% of the fight. And Patchwork if you're a soaker. If you're a soaker on Patchwork, yeah. But I've never really felt like the Thorium Shield Spike threat was worth it because as long as you're properly managing your cooldowns and your abilities, even with a shield on, you really don't have any threat issues on those fights. And there's other ways you can go about gaining threat, which one would be just calling out, "Hey, I'm gonna go dual wield for 20 seconds to the healers," or you can blow Death Wish. You can blow a Mighty Rage Pot if you don't have Stone Shield up. There's other options you can do. You can Sapper. You can throw Holy Water. You know, those things, a lot of those things are going to end up, either doing relatively the same or more threat than a Thorium Shield Spike is going to do. The other options for endgame shield enchants are stamina, which is 7 stamina, or blocking, which is 2% block. And for a while, I was doing 7 stamina, and the issue that I have with the 7 stamina is that, as I said, unless you actually have the shield on, that 7 stamina. So when you swap that out, so watch my health. When I swap back to my offhand, my health changes, it dips. Because that shield has 21 stamina on it. If I add 7 more stamina, if I'm getting beat down and I'm down to 30% health and I put the shield on, you don't gain that stamina right away. The healers have to heal you up to it. So that, with 7 stamina on that shield, it would be 28 stamina. And it really doesn't do anything for you until you get topped up. But once you get topped up, you're probably going to go back to dual wielding anyway. So that 7 stamina, when you think about it, it's really not doing a whole lot for you when you're dual wielding. And you're just popping a shield off and on, here and there. On Saffron and on Lotheb and on Patchwork as a soaker, yes, I could maybe see the argument that you're starting with the shield on, you're going to leave the shield on, you're not swapping it in and out. But 2% block, in my opinion, because basically what you're saying, if you think about it as block, in order to push crushing blows off the table and crits off the table, you have to remove the chance for the boss to basically all of your avoidance has to equal 102.4%, and that basically means that you cannot be hit with a regular hit, which means you can't be crit and you can't be crushed. So in shield block, as an ability, increases your block chance by 75%. Now, and this is in my threat gear, so I don't even have any block chance on, I'm not wearing my full mitigation set. But if we add these percentages up here, real quick, so this is 27, plus the 9 and the 3, 28 plus 6, so that's 34. So 34 plus 75 is more than 102.4. So when I press shield block, and I'm going to have even more block because the shield has 5% block on it, even without 3% block, even without my 2%. So when I press shield block, so let's just do that real quick. So that now my block's up to 91. So I'm already uncrittable and uncrushable for those 2 hits. And again, it's 2 hits because I have improved shield block. If you do not have improved shield block, even if you don't have shield specialization, you're still going to be crit and crush immune when you put a shield on and press shield block. The issue is that you're only going to have 1 charge of shield block, and shield block's cooldown is 5 seconds. Most bosses are going to be swinging at you. If you include parry haste, and depending on what other mechanics are going on, like Gluth can frenzy and speed up his attack speed, you can be hit every second. Even if a boss's swing speed is 2 seconds. Even with Thunder Fury debuff up, some of the bosses can attack you every second or every second and a half. So that means they're going to get 3 swings off on you if you don't have improved shield block, where your shield's going to where basically that cooldown is going to be down. So my logic for having the block on the shield is, for one, this is the best shield in the game, so there's really not any. the other shields, I'll just look at them real quick. So the other options really would be the shield from Encourage. This has block on it as well. So this is really close to the Face of Death. It has less armor, but it has 20 stamina, which versus 21 stamina, they're very similar. It has almost 500 more armor, which is why it's the best shield in the game. And this has defense rating on it, which you don't necessarily care about unless you're trying to be crit immune, and it has shield block value. So this shield has block on it. The other shield that people love is Chromagus Cardor, and this one has 2,800 armor versus almost 3,500, and it does not have block chance on it, but it does have block value and defense. So it has 23 stamina, so it actually has 2 more stamina. If it wasn't for the armor, the Cardor's arguably I mean, I think I still would take the face of death just because, and the reason why is because while shield block is down, so if you're fighting a boss like Saffron, who has not only can he, like I said, he can attack faster than his normal swing speed because he can get parried. He gets parried by you, and he also can get parried by DPS that are not in the right position. He also cleaves, and cleave is a melee attack. It's a special ability. It will eat up a charge of shield block. So if you hit shield block and he cleaves and he melees at the same time, both of your charges of shield block are now gone. So for the next 4 seconds or 4.5 seconds, where you're waiting on shield block's cooldown, you're only relying on your block chance to help you not get crit or crushed, because any the only other way to push crits off the table is through defense rating by hitting the max defense rating, which is 440. You can't push crushes off the table unless you have your avoidance stacked to 102.4%. So what you're really doing here is you're saying I'm adding a chant to my shield that gives me 2% less chance of being crit or crushed while I have the shield on, which to me is better than 7 stamina. I don't necessarily think that people who use 7 stamina are idiots or that they're wrong. Just in my opinion, I would rather have that 2 and again, I've talked about this in other videos, but the thing about RNG is you never know when it's going to praise you or when it's going to turn you around and kick you in the mud. I have a very low defense rating in this set of gear. You could see against a level 63 NPC boss, I'm only reducing their chance to crit me by 0.76%, less than 1%. But it is possible that that little tiny bit of defense does avoid a crit during a boss fight. It's just not possible to see that in the logs. You can't look and see in the logs like, oh, I got crit 5 times, but it would have been 4 if I had 10 more defense on. You just don't know when RNG is going to decide to bless you. So even having this 2% block on, that could do nothing through an entire raid for me. It also could block 20 different times. Like think about the trinket from it's a quest reward, Mark of the Chosen. And I don't have it. I don't think. Oh, I got it on my paladin, I think. And I'm probably wearing it on my paladin. No, here it is, Mark of the Chosen. So if you've never gotten this trinket before, it's a quest in Desolace, and it has a 2% chance when struck in combat of increasing all your stats by 25 for 1 minute. And early on, this is a very good tanking trinket because 25, so that's 25 intellect, which is garbage for warriors, 25 stamina, 25 strength, 25 agility, all your base stats, which is pretty good. The downside is you don't have any control over when it procs, and it sounds like it doesn't proc a lot. 2% is not a high chance. But if you wear this trinket and go into like a 5-man or UBRS or any of those raids, the lower raids, you'll see that it actually does proc like more than you would think. So just 2% chance to block, sounds pretty low, but it's very likely over the course of a raid, especially if you're tanking every boss. If you're only tanking 2 or 3 bosses, it might not, help you as much. But if you're tanking, if I'm running BWL and I'm tanking every single boss, there's a very good chance that 2% block on my shield has taken effect multiple times throughout the raid, and I've been able to avoid another crit or a crushing blow. Now, that being said, so if I swap to my 4-piece, so you can see my 4-piece, I'm wearing 4 pieces of tier 3, and none of the pieces that I have on. So I have the helmet, which is dodge and defense, the chest, which is defense, dodge, and hit, bracers, which is defense, and boots, which is defense and dodge. I don't have the gloves on. I don't have the belt on. I don't have the legs on. And the reason I don't is because there's better options in those slots for one. But the gloves and the belt offer shield block and shield block value. And again, I'm not going to have a shield on, when I'm wearing this set of gear, even if I'm like I use this set of gear for example when I'm tanking Mexna. I'm not gonna have a shield on when I'm tanking Mexna unless she's about to wrap. I'm gonna be dual wielding the entire time. So having those tier 3 pieces of gear with dodge and block, or excuse me, with block value and block rating on them, block chance, or those stats are doing nothing for me for 90% of the fight or more. Um, Now, and again, it's true that's you could say that about my shield, but I don't have my shield on. I'm dual wielding. When I throw the shield on, then that block does become valuable. If it was possible to change pieces of gear in combat, I would have it set so that when I changed into when I put my shield on, I would also put on other pieces of gear that added block rating or block chance. I keep saying block rating, because block is good. Like it's not that it's terrible. The amount of damage you block is inconsequential. You're not blocking so you can avoid 180 damage. Um, like we can look at like here's my mitigation set. And my mitigation set still only includes 4 pieces of tier 3. And again, it's because I'm probably going to be dual wielding even when I'm using this set. But I'm aiming more for armor and defense and stamina than I am for block chance and block rating. So like these shoulders, Pauldrons of the Unrelenting, technically these are BIS mitigation because they have, instead of the tier 3, so tier 3 has chance to hit, which is good if you need it, block value and defense, and then 29 stamina and 16 strength. And the Pauldrons of the Unrelenting are 30 stamina and 11 strength, 9 defense, and 1% dodge. So if the tier 3 had 1% dodge instead of that block value, they would probably be the better option, or they would basically be. And it's not like these shoulders are miles ahead of these. They're not. I mean, they're very, very, very similar. And even looking at the stats, you're probably thinking, "You're crazy. I'd wear tier 3." Technically speaking, for mitigation and avoidance, these are better. The Pauldrons of the Unrelenting are better. But you can see my block chance is still not great. Like I still don't have a ton of block, and that's on purpose because, like I said, I have spec'd into improved shield block, so I know that when I press shield block, I'm even with this low block chance, I'm going to be over that 102.4% avoidance, where I'm guaranteed to not be crit or crushed. And then while that's down, I still have almost, and this is unbuffed, obviously. I don't have any world buffs or any raid buffs. I still have almost 20% dodge and almost 10% parry, almost 9.5% parry. So, I still have a decent amount of avoidance even with shield block down. And actually, another few pieces of gear, and I'm probably going to drop this out of my spec and just go 5 out of 5 anticipation and get back points into toughness instead. I've been playing around with this build a little bit, and throwing anticipation in there, and the reason why is because I'm working on a crit immune dual wield setup. But again, like these points are wasted for a lot of the raids that I go to. These 5 points in shield block or shield specialization are not really doing anything for me. In BWL, I very rarely put a shield on, and if I do, it's just for a few seconds, and then I go back to dual wielding. In Molten Core, I don't really go to Molten Core on my warrior anymore, but my warrior in Molten Core, I would probably never put on a shield. Only when my health gets low. I use it just as another oh shit button. In Nax, probably like I said, 90% of the raid, I'm not getting any value out of this. But when I do put a shield on, it suddenly does become valuable because you can't keep shield block up 100% of the time. It's not. If you could, then there would be no reason to have block on anything. You could just keep shield block up and never worry about. You can get lucky sometimes where you hit shield block and then the boss misses you and then you parry and then you dodge, then he hits you and you block it and then you still have one more charge up. That does happen, and it is possible for that to happen, and then you start to get rage starved a little bit. But that helps the healers top you up, and then you can go back to dual wielding. So anyway, just wanted to kind of talk about my here's my patchwork soaking set, which again is very similar. You can see I'm still under 20% block even with the shield on. And with patchwork as a soaker, his hateful strikes cannot crit or crush anyway. You're using the shield for the stamina and the armor, and that's another reason why. Like if you look, I still don't have full tier 3 on because there's better options. You need to be able to survive the hateful strikes but still pump out threat, because you can't just stand there. You do need to pump out threat as a patchwork soaker, which is why I have DPS trinkets on. You don't need to have a high defense rating. It helps you to parry and to dodge a little bit, but you want your armor and your stamina to be high. He cannot crit or crush you with hateful strikes, which is good because they would probably one shot you anyway because of how hard they hit. But just wanted to talk through my logic, because I honestly don't know a ton of other tanks. Like I do go back I do go and look at other tanks that raid Nax and look at their gear sets and look at their parses and see what were they wearing and what did they cast in order to parse that high, and what were they doing. I look at damage taken and a few other things, and I don't really find too many people using this. Most people do just default to the 7 stamina. And I think the logic there usually is like, well, stamina is always there. It doesn't require RNG, which is true. But like I said, when you put a shield on in the middle of a fight, you're not automatically gaining that 7 stamina. You have to be healed up that 7 stamina in order for it to be taking effect. And without using the shield the entire fight, as soon as you take the shield back off, that stamina is gone. So I just don't. And if it was 15 stamina, or we're talking half the stamina that a Rumsey Rum gives you. So if you're gonna put 7 stamina on your shield, are you also drinking Rumsey Rum during the raid? Because that gives you double the stamina of that shield enchant. I don't really drink Rumsey Rum and Nax anymore because of the buff cap. I'll drink it if I lose world buffs, and that's why I have it in my bags. It's there just in case. I drink it on twins for a little extra stamina on twins in AQ40. I don't use it in BWL or any of the other raids, and I don't use it in Nax if I'm world buffed. I don't even use Spirit of Zanza, which is 50 stamina. I don't use that in Nax anymore either. I use Roids because I need the threat. Because what happens here? So this is probably going to be another topic of conversation, but because I've as Alliance, yes, we do have Blessing and Salvation, but our warriors, are half of a step behind me running into a boss fight. They really don't give you any time to get in there and build up threat. And if you get parried or dodged or whatever off the rip, then probably somebody's dying. But there's more. I feel like this is more useful than the stamina. When I have world buffs out and raid buffs, and I've got all my consumes on, even in my threat set of gear, I'm at 9,500 or 10,000 health. And then if I put on 4-piece, I'm at like 11,000 or 11,000 and change. 50 more stamina, like that's a bunch. That's a lot. And I do take this to Nax with me, and I keep it in my bags in case I die. Because if I die, obviously I lose my world buffs, but I also lose roids. But there's times where, our tanks die on a boss, and then another tank dies, and then it's like, well, we can either start enlisting Fury Warriors to main tank, or we just need to, have the swap, whichever warrior has world buffs now becomes skull target. The other warriors become X and square and, star or whatever. Then I'll drink a Spirit of Zanza, because then I've lost my other world buffs that, increase my hit points artificially. So anyway, that's why I use blocking on my shield. And even though I've said multiple times, and I still will continue to say it, don't wear pieces of gear that have block on them. It's not worth it as a Fury prot tank, because you should be dual wielding, 90% of a boss fight. And again, it depends on your healers, but in general, you should only have a shield on for a very small percentage of a boss fight. Or even on trash. Sometimes on trash you gotta blow shield block, and you put a shield on to add some more armor to help you stay alive for a few seconds. And really, when you're putting that shield on too, that's like, the idea behind that is like, if I get chunked down, if I run into a pack, and let's say the other, like if we run into in Deathwing and not Deathwing, what's it called, Death Knight, wing, military wing. If we run into military wing and we run into a pack and I'm ahead of the other tanks and they just have, maybe they were sitting behind redoing their stones on their weapons or whatever, and all of a sudden I've got 4 mobs on me when I should only have 1, I'm gonna put a shield on and shield block. And you know, the two things you're really looking to do there with the shield when you put a shield on as a Fury Prot tank is not to increase your hit point pool. You're looking to get your that extra armor on, because this is like drinking another Stone Shield almost times 2. Because Stone Shield gives you 2,000 armor. This gives you 3,500. So putting this on is like drinking another 1.5 Stone Shields, and then hitting shield block, because that guarantees you cannot be crit or crushed. And obviously a level 62, I don't think the level 62 has a very high chance of crushing you, if any at all, in trash. But that's why you're putting the shield on, is so that you can block, so that you can guarantee that you don't get crit. Because there are times where your hit points get so low that a regular melee hit won't kill you, but a crit will. And you want to try to, hold that off as long as possible. So, all right. Well, if anybody has any dissenting opinions, or if anybody agrees, or, if anybody has any questions, let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next video.